Yes.
Right.
Great.
Right, so this is just a summary of the questionnaire that you kindly completed last week, over the last 3 or 4 weeks. So my thanks, first of all, to everyone who took part in it. Just to remind you of how the questionnaire came about, we took what Norman was just showing on his last screen, each of the different models of motivation. So our objective was to explore our motivation specifically in relation to the SDGs. We took the Maslow, Alderfer, and Glasser and Robbins models together with some of the additional points that we had together, and we linked them together into the questionnaire, which has been, I've color-coded into sections. So the yellow section, for example, deals with the basic needs. They're not in a hierarchy as they appear on here. We also allowed at the end a section for any other needs. In fact, Melissa was the only one who came up with any other suggestions, and we incorporated those into the final version of the questionnaire. No one has suggested anything additional in their responses. So that was just a reminder of how we asked you to complete the questionnaire. We asked you to indicate the level of importance, whether it was from the lowest importance, level 1, across to the highest importance at level 5. The expectation was that everyone would complete each of those dimensions. And in fact, 1 or 2 people didn't do that, which is why when we look at the respondents, we had 12 returns, but only 11 of them were sufficiently completed for inclusion in the overview. So my apologies to the one person whose answers aren't included in this, but it was simply because it would have skewed all the answers, as there were only about 3 or 4 dimensions mentioned. The people who responded were based in the UK, North and South America. I have to say, though, that we're not a typical representative random sample, that we are very much obviously well educated. Many of us are in the older age groups, and there is a preponderance of women. So I think we have to recognize that. The project's explicit focus or SDG focuses were, as we said before, 8 people were focused on SDG 15, 3 on health, and so on. And if I interpret those in the same terms as Norman's final slide, 5 of those projects were focused on people, 11 on the planet, which is probably self-evident from the title of the survey of the project itself. Prosperity, 2 people, 1 on peace and 1 on partnership. And then what I did with those profiles, I converted each person's results into a percentage of the total possible scores. And you'll see on each of the pie charts that follow, it enables us to make a comparison between individuals. And then after the next 2 slides, I'll show you what the mean scores were for the overall overview. But you'll see there are some obvious outliers on the next 2 slides. So look out, for example, for Eleanor, myself, and Janet in specific domains. So I'll give you a minute just to look at this. These were the profiles for the first 6 people that I processed. If we take this area, for example, my day-to-day existence, for Catalina, that scored 35%, which was fairly comparable with Melissa's 40%. But then we come to people like Dory and Eleanor, for whom it represented 100%. It was the highest importance to them. And if you apply that same principle, you can see immediately where there are certain outliers. So, for example, here we can see that freedom for Eleanor was relatively unimportant at 60%, whereas for 4 of the other people on this slide, it was of maximum importance. And Dory was somewhere near the top as well. So I'll give you just a few seconds to look at that. And if anyone wants to come back to me, perhaps we'll look at the next slide as well. And then if you want to discuss individuals, we can do the same. Right, the next slide was the remaining 4 people. And here I said I was an outlier. Well, I'm certainly different in that here we can see contribution was 47%, though in fact, Janet's was fairly low as well. Freedom was definitely an outlying issue for Janet, for whom that was only 20% of importance. Significance varies, you can see, between each of us here. But again, I'll give you a few seconds to digest that. So if I move on to the next slide, what I did then was I simply found the mean score for everything. And you can see here my comments on them. The scores were actually very high, apart from day-to-day existence. The most significant factors were growth and learning and fun and enjoyment of that, which scored 91%. It was very closely followed by sense of self-fulfillment, concern with the existence of others, which of course is relatedness. Freedom, contrary to my own score, scored very highly at 86%. High value also to contribution, which of course is what we've just been talking about, 81.3%. Relatedness, purpose and significance. So all up in the high 80s, well, between the 80s and 90%. So all of those important. Of significantly less importance, though, to us was daily personal existence. And again, I think that has to reflect the situation that each of us is in as fairly, probably middle class, relatively comfortable and well established. That would be my speculation anyway. So if we then take those findings and try and interpret them again in terms of what Norman showed us a moment ago, we've got Maslow in the main triangle, or the hierarchy here. Along this side, we've got Alderfer's ERG model. And then on this side, we've got our own extrapolations from that. You can see I've simply transferred the scores that you saw on the last slide. Self-actualization and self-esteem were extremely important to us. Safety needs and existence needs in terms of Alderfer were secondary importance. And then relatedness was somewhere in the middle. Not surprisingly, physiological needs were of less importance to us, as for the reasons I've just said a few moments ago. So that's a quick whiz through what was actually a very rich exercise. And I thank you all again, because it was fascinating. And I hope it's given us something that we can build maybe an article for the next magazine out of. So over to you for comments.
Thank you, Jenny. Any thoughts from anyone looking at those, maybe the pie charts?
Do you want me to go back to those?
That might be helpful, because I think there's a lot there to take in.
I was going to say, thank you, Jenny. It's such a very, very extensive job you've done there, and analysing all of that. Really interesting to see it.
It is, and I think the colour coding, I mean, you can immediately spot the differences, can't you?
Mm.
Yes, it's easier to spot it. Thank you, great. Very extensive job.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything to highlight or query?
Did it surprise anyone the findings?
I was thinking about being such an urgent matter. We're all thinking about growth and about the very top motivations, and we still don't feel it's related to survival.
Yeah.
We feel it has to do with the very top. That's just one idea regarding what this.
I think it's recognized in existence of others. So here, for example, this orange sector, I think people did recognize it there, but they were interpreting my day-to-day existence, I think, more at the fundamental need for food and well, basic survival.
Mm.
Could
Norman, are you?
yeah. Could that be something to do with scale again, though, that we're focused, at the micro scale, whereas survival things generally are big threats, aren't they? Maybe we're not seeing our projects in that context.
Mm,
We're seeing them as very small scale things, which for the most part, as Jenny's analysis shows, is providing us with fulfillment, with providing us with fun and pleasure and these sorts of things. Just maybe that's the context in which these questions are being posed, and we don't therefore see it as something that's fundamentally affecting our existence. It's more about affecting our sense of who we are and our well-being, I guess.
Yes.
I wonder if that's the project element that is giving us the fulfillment and the fun and so on. I mean, these meetings are great fun, because I was thinking my 92-year-old mum, when it's been really, really hot, like last summer, or really, really cold, I worry for her existence, her resilience, and her physical resilience. And so there is an element of day-to-day existence, but the project I'm involved in is trying to do something about that. The project itself makes me feel like I'm trying to do something.
It might be interesting then to rerun the survey, not related to projects, but to our everyday lives, and compare.
Yeah, I wonder whether if we asked that set of questions with any project that we were undertaking as individuals, that we would come up with similar ways of looking at things. In other words, is this the way we see the world as a group of people? The fact that we're all very interested in learning and education and growth and development, does that then skew the way that we look at everything? If we take on any significant project, would we see it in these ways?
Interesting.
Very interesting. It could be our specs, the way we look at things.
Yeah, the way we look at things, yeah.
Our whatever color education is, colored spectacles, yes. Maybe rose, maybe green.
Jenny, could you stop sharing the screen, please? Because I want to start the recording again. We missed it. Unfortunately, the recording wasn't on. Okay.
Was it not on?
No.
It did say it was going to be on, but we can look at the presentation. Anybody who catches up with this could see the presentation.
Jenny, you're still the host. If you could make me the host again, then I can press the record button.
It says recording in my screen. It says recording.
Oh well, in that case, then yeah, Jenny, maybe you've got to return. Okay, leave it going then. Yeah, that's good.
You're right. It does. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I mean, there are possible prompts, thoughts and contributions for the rest of the time that we have, which is about 12 minutes, I think we've budgeted for us to kind of think more generally about this whole question of motivation that we've looked at from different perspectives, angles, or whatever through the presentations from Norman and Jenny. So I wonder whether or not we have any stories to share about motivation and the demotivators and the commitment that we've had to bring into doing our projects. If we've got any stories so far to share about how that's been. If I could share something to start the ball rolling, I'm always impressed, Norman, by how much action you're taking, and I feel like I am doing odd little things and not actually getting to grips with action. But I've realized that my project is about doing little things but trying to have a bigger effect. So my project, going back to your continuum, is trying to get other people to move along that continuum with me. I'm moving along it, but so when I posted, if you managed to see it, don't worry if you didn't, it wasn't riveting, about my No Mow May exercise, I actually didn't do anything. I asked somebody not to do it. I spoke to them. I spoke to another person in their team. I'm going to speak to somebody else about it. So it's less about me being able to take action, because frankly, in my daughter's garden, everything I suggest, they say no. But the fact that I'm suggesting it means there's a discussion, and the next thing I discuss seems to be a bit easier because they've realized that I'm going to go on about this, and that I regard this as how to be as a grandmother. Joining the club, Russ. You could be quite bossy or persistent. I like to think I'm persistent. So I realized that the actions don't have to necessarily be about doing lovely things in the garden, in the environment. It can be about working with others. Well, at least that's for me. That's my understanding.
Mm.
And the other thing that I haven't been saying is that my daughter is a teacher, and I want her to understand this. She's an early years teacher for early years education, and I want her to realize that she can do something despite the fact that she's so too busy to think about anything I've got to say, that there are little things that can be done, and to be encouraged through that. So it's a kind of multiplier effect. That's my answer to the small scale things we do. It's whether or not you can multiply them. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now, but
Well, I loved your story, Melissa. I just thought, you know, in your context where you didn't actually have a garden, you still managed to make things happen in very subtle, very creative ways. And not only that, but you could see how you could make even bigger things happen in the next year by, again, persuading people or group to take some action. I thought it was a wonderful story of having an effect on the world through other people, by making other people do things.
Yes, thank you. But that's my answer to the problem where I thought I'm not doing anything. My motivation really dipped because I thought I wanted to do the wildflower seeds. I wanted to do this. Everything seemed to come up with a no. What they really wanted was me to mow the grass in their garden because they haven't got time to do it. So you know, and I didn't really want to do that because I didn't think that was my project. But I've realized what my project is, and it's a much slower growing crop.
And you're the mother. Because it comes from you, it will always be a no.
I know, I do the same myself. I know my first answer is always no, and my mum has quite a few good ideas.
See?
So
are you connecting creativity to motivation there? Because I thought it was wonderfully creative the way you engineered it, facilitated it. I mean, are you bringing together the idea that motivation can be derived almost from creative thinking and action?
I have to think about that. I mean, one of the things that motivates me is being part of this and having talked about my project. So I think I need to do something. What on earth can I do? I couldn't do this. What can I do? So I suppose that is creativity. Doesn't feel like it at the time, but maybe it is. Have others had hiccups with motivation, with a demotivator? I mean, Russ, you were very eloquent to begin with about the demotivators. Has anybody found anything very motivating? Russ, you have.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for drawing our attention to the kind of legacy potential of things that we do and say, and you speaking to your daughter and the potential for those early years, those little ones, then to get something from her and others, millions of others in that generation of teaching and so on. So yeah, thanks for that. That's a little nudge of inspiration.
Oh, well, I'm delighted. Anything on a Tuesday evening to help. Anyone else got anything that's really helped that they found?
Just to continue with the early years idea.
Yes.
In my case, I've been always motivated because children are so easy to motivate.
Yeah.
Whatever they're curious, they love everything. So whatever you propose, they're just on fire with it.
Yeah.
And so I've always tried in different areas to engage parents with whatever we're doing with children And it has always been demotivating. It was, I've always found a wall that they say, oh, it's nice, yeah, what they're doing at school. And so I've been wondering why they don't engage. So I've gone from children, and I did a little like scheme or a little drawing about it. So I go from children to families, always trying to engage families. And so I thought I'll work with families, as you know, on their own. And I've come back to children because there was no way to engaging families on their own. And I thought I'll bring children to do certain things, and then I'll do some kind of questionnaire, but regarding what parents realize that children do at a preschool, at least not at a place that they just, put children in a drawer or something, that you do something educationally. So in that sense, sometimes it's ignorance. It's because you don't know what children are really doing when they engage with a project. And maybe they just look at it as it's nicer playing. So I'm going to try to bring awareness regarding that, because it's really demotivating to find the adults, because it comes from early years. It must be really not important. It must be about playing. So if you come down from their side and say, so what is it that we're doing when we learn about the planet? What is it that children are doing? So I'm trying to build a questionnaire to send them home, try and find some kind of answer to know what they think about, to make them aware of how important, how you model children, how do you model your actions, model the actions of children, and how children can also do important stuff that you may minimize in a way or undermine. So it's a bit demotivating knowing that society in general don't take the seriousness that you should take for early years. Probably that's for me is the most demotivating, because I realize how important it is and the effect it has.
Absolutely. And that is your role as an early years educator, isn't it? It's actually as much about the parents as the children, and maybe it's multi-pronged, what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Brit has had her cartoon hand up for some time. So sorry, I'm not talking personally there. It's your little yellow hand is up. Yes.
Yes. You can hear me, can't you?
Yes. You can.
Now you were talking about motivation, and Irene and I, we have a kind of a different project, maybe at least compared. It's not that personal. We had this job challenge on sustainability. We wanted to bring sustainability into our flexible studies. We are working in a department for lifelong learning. And today we actually, or I have to say Irene, because she was the brain behind the application, we received €250,000 to a project to make two topics with credits about sustainability. So this is really a boost for the ongoing work. So yeah, very good. So, but it should have been Irene that should bring the good news to you, but at least I'm sharing it. Irene was not able to make it today. She had another meeting.
That's marvelous. But I
Well
think
done, Brit.
It's highly motivational.
That's my point. Yes. So that's I mean a bit or really work related, but we have a mix of projects in this group. So, but yeah.
Please remind us at every meeting about that, because that was very motivational. What an impact that might have.
Really? So that is, thank you. I will.
Thank you. Anyone else want to? Norman? Yes.
Just to what Josie was just saying then about modelling. Victoria, who couldn't be here today, sent us an email just before we got to the Zoom, and she was talking about exactly the same thing, that the desire in an educational context to model behaviours and, if you like, share own struggles with things related to SDGs as a way of motivating others, a way of showing people that actually it's not easy. There's lots of stuff in here that's messy and difficult, but you're still trying, and it's that that idea that you try in an authentic way, in an honest way, warts and all sort of thing. And that is the way you then encourage other people, I guess, motivate other people.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think about that in a very mundane way. When people talk about how hard it is to recycle things, if everybody joins in and says, yes, it's too hard to recycle. But if someone says, yes, but I found this, yes, but I found that, I'm trying to do this and so on, it's amazing what a difference that makes. I've found that where I work, that there's someone who's very, very interested. Yes, bye, Russ. I'm sure your dinner's cold, or in the dog. Bye. Thank you. So yes, I think that modeling is something really quite interesting for our projects. And Victoria's doing this in the context of staff development or educational development, a context where she's running programs and so on. So she's trying to model something as well as in herself as a model, as well as maybe content or whatever.
Well, I mean, it's a good question for all of us, really, now. And if I look at my own situation, I'm working within a community project, which is all about trying to create more wildflower habitats for insect pollinators. And so what I'm doing in my own environment is to act as a sort of model to say, look, this is why I'm putting effort into this. These are my successes. These are things which haven't worked out, but it is the sort of sharing warts and all that you hope then other people will be encouraged to try themselves.
Yes. Any thoughts from anyone else? That I'm sure we're going to start losing people because our time is actually up. But yes, Catalina.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that my motivation is education and youth. The creativity, they have the power, they have to change things. So we have to raise awareness. I think that the real change can be through youth.
Yeah.
And that's my motivation.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. And we are relying on that capacity, that energy, that it's going to be their work as well as ours, isn't it? So that's a motivation and a huge resource.
And a responsibility.
Yes, yes. Well, that's a very kind of...
I'm going to have to go, I'm sorry.
Yes, it's a very positive note that we can end on, I think. So thank you, everybody who stayed